Hey everyone, I'm Mary Kaplan, Director of Product Marketing with Vertesia. We are the high-speed, low-code way to build and deploy generative AI apps and agents. And today we're going to talk about just that, actually deploying generative AI in production. So, if you're stuck in what we call the pilot purgatory phase of GenAI deployment, you are not alone. A lot of generative AI projects are not making it to production. We surveyed 400 enterprise leaders across a variety of IT roles, and what we found in this survey was really interesting. The enterprises who have deployed GenAI in production are seeing value even more than they expected, right? These are the teams that pushed past the experimentation phase into the execution phase, and their investment is paying off. But they are certainly in the minority because only 30% of respondents to that survey have actually deployed GenAI in production. The overwhelming majority of generative AI projects are not making it to production. They're stuck in the testing phase, and it's not surprising. Pilots are really important. Pilots take time, and generative AI is a relatively new software. So again, it's not surprising that pilots are taking a long time, but if you're wondering, I thought generative AI was going to revolutionize my business and you're not seeing it, it could be because it's just stuck in the pilot phase. So why do GenAI projects get stuck? I think it's multi-tiered with two big components, right? You have business misalignment and you have maybe an unstable technical foundation. So many early failures in generative AI deployment can be traced back to the misalignment between the technical teams, the team who are building the agents, and the business team, the team defining the use cases, which this is kind of a software tale as old as time. If you have the two sides of the house, they're not speaking to each other, you probably won't have a very successful software deployment. And AI, generative AI, has seemed kind of mysterious and kind of unknowable. So again, if you're thinking about those business team and business users, not your technical team, it's not surprising that generative AI hasn't seemed very friendly in terms of enterprise-wide deployments. So it's really important to have a shared ownership between these two teams, between the two sides of the house, in order for generative AI projects not to get stuck and fail to deliver. I think it's important to note too that you don't want to pilot the wrong use cases. You don't want your IT team or your technical team piloting generative AI capabilities that are really cool, but they're not really creating value for the business, because that won't be very impressive and there won't be that urgency to get this into production. And then on the other hand, you have unstable technical foundations. So garbage in, garbage out, that's true now more than ever. Generative AI models are only as good as the data that they rely on. Poorly structured, inconsistent, inaccessible data can actually lead to something called hallucinations by LLMs. If LLMs don't have the right information, they're going to still give you an answer to your question or try to complete your task, and they will do it wrong, which is, you don't want to put that into production either, right? So it's important for organizations to invest in a systemic approach of cleaning up data, organizing and structuring data so that they can have reliable output that's accurate from LLMs. And speaking of LLMs, there are a number of models on the market today. It can be hard to know which to choose. They each have different performance, they have different reliability, and you may not want to be locked into one model only, because then you won't benefit from the changes that come about with other models, and different models do different things well. So all these things to think about when you're thinking about building, deploying generative AI. So how do you actually get to production, right? Well, first things first, you want to define the purpose, the why and the where generative AI can help. A lot of organizations, understandably, fall into a trap of focusing only on low-hanging fruit. So small, isolated use cases that demonstrate capabilities of GenAI, but they're not creating that actual business value. And there's a lot of bad examples of generative AI. You would never want an unmoderated customer support chatbot on your website, right? A good example of generative AI when it comes to customer support is leveraging a generative AI agent to track customer support issues, to track sentiment analysis, NPS score, revenue, and churn, and put all these things together and really define, okay, are we getting the same feedback over and over from customers regarding feature X or lack of feature X, and that's actually leading to revenue loss and high churn. So once you've defined the purpose of GenAI, it's time to set the stage. We're talking about generative AI readiness, we're talking about data prep, and thinking about the right technical foundations. When it comes to designing and building generative AI, this is where a lot of companies start to have that build versus buy dilemma. Do we build our own or do we buy a platform solution? And they both have pros and cons. But to truly deploy GenAI, right, you do not want to get stuck in the cycle of deploying one-off projects that each require new models, infrastructure, and workflows, because that will lead to inefficiencies, a fragmented approach, potential risks of compliance, difficulties to maintain and scale over time. When it comes to deploying GenAI and really getting your applications and agents to production, we think at Vertesia it's best to take a platform approach that has security built in, where you're not locked into one model, where you have access to all of the models available on the market, and that has a composable platform architecture so that you can rinse and repeat, right? Don't reinvent the wheel every time there's a new use case from the business. You leverage a platform that has all of the foundations and the components that can be reused and applied across multiple business functions. And our customer Hashgraph did just that. Hashgraph develops the software that powers the Hedera platform, a high-performance digital tokenization and blockchain solution. And Hashgraph, like many software companies, was challenged to produce timely and accurate product release notes and product documentation. As we know, these are really high-effort tasks that come very frequently. For a lot of software companies, it's every 6 weeks, if not sooner, in terms of release notes. And I think it's important to say that Hashgraph, a software company, technology company, chose not to build a generative AI solution. They chose to partner with Vertesia and take a platform approach and forward-looking approach to implementing generative AI. So they started with their core business, which is software, and infusing generative AI to increase efficiencies, reduce the manual workload. And now they're deploying generative AI across their enterprise in marketing departments and in HR departments. Again, rinse and repeat and scaling generative AI in a really meaningful and measurable way. And we've taken a consultative approach with Hashgraph, with all of our customers and prospective customers, really getting to understand the business and mapping use cases on a matrix of high value, low effort, so that everyone can leave the meeting knowing what's my roadmap for deploying GenAI, right? We don't just hand you a platform and say good luck. We actually walk hand in hand and think about GenAI in your business, your core business, and how to deploy it. So 3 key takeaways. If you think about deploying GenAI, remember this. Start with a collaborative vision. The business side of the house and the technology side of the house In order to have successful generative AI deployment, strategize together about the right use cases and the right approach. And look at the benefits of a platform approach, being able to rinse and repeat and avoiding a cycle of one-off deployments. Where can a platform approach really help you scale generative AI deployment and get out of that testing phase? And remember this, AI should re-engineer your core business processes. What you don't want to do is just digitize inefficiencies, right? Don't focus solely on quick wins. Focus on your business processes, the future of your value, the future of your business, and how GenAI can revolutionize that. And we'd love to show you how. With Vertisia, you can have a production-ready GenAI app and agent in a matter of days, not weeks, not months. So reach out today for a demo to learn more at vertisiahq.com. Thank you.